So I'm already logged into my Acumatica system. This is 26R1, the latest build that is available. And we're going to start today with an on the opportunity screen, looking at a new feature called activity feeds. This feature right now is available just on the opportunities, but Acumatica did mention that this activity feed is going to become available throughout the system in later releases. So within an opportunity, there is now this new side panel up here called activities. And this activity feed takes all of your activities that you've recorded on this record, so emails, notes, tasks, and things like that, and it now organizes this in this view as a side panel. Within the activity, you can actually assign an icon, right, to give it a visual as to what type of activity that it is, such as an email or a chat or a task. That's all configurable in your activities configuration screen. Within the activity stream, you can do some filtering on your different activity types. You can even do some searching. I like how Acumatica has given us this show more so that if you have a lengthy note within the activity or within the email, you could say show more or show less, right? And it will expand this activity feed to show you more. Mine happens to fit all in this screen. From this activity stream, you can continue to create new activities just like you could in your activity tab on the opportunity. So you could create your different activity types that will then get added to your feed. So it's just a much more organized, I would say, interactive view and a way to look at activities from the standard activities tab on the opportunity. Now, until this gets fully rolled out throughout the system, they are still keeping the activities tab here on the opportunity. So this is how you can see what it looked like before versus what it looks like after. Okay, so you do have that available to you through the new modern UI. If anyone's using the new modern UI, I think a lot of our customers now have been upgraded to 25R2 and are utilizing the modern UI. Through the modern UI, if you wanted to go into your screen configuration, you could actually hide the activity tab so that users are now going to be using it only on the side panel. So that's the new activity stream or feeds. Next thing that we're going to take a look at on this opportunity is this new PDF viewer. This PDF viewer is global throughout the system. So on any transaction where you're able to attach files, you can now view that PDF as a side panel. So if I click my PDF side panel, that's going to pop that out. And here's where it's going to show me that PDF that's attached. And from the lookup, if I have multiple PDF files attached, I could search for whatever PDF that I would like to view. So previously, right, without having that side panel, you had to go to files and you actually had to open up the file to preview it. So a much more efficient way to work through that PDF viewer that's now available. Continuing on this same opportunity, I wanted to make note that Acumatica has added some margin percentages and margin amounts now to the opportunity. So over here, right where you're seeing all of your totals related to the opportunity, at the bottom, you have those two fields now that give you that margin percentage and amount. This is also on your quote document. Previously, the margin percent and amount was visible only if you were using a project quote. It was not available on sales quotes or the opportunity itself. So those two fields have been added, which is very helpful, right, when you're doing your quoting or trying to manage your opportunities, especially if you have certain margin percentages or thresholds that you're required to meet. I'm going to go back out to my opportunity. Okay. And lastly, with this opportunity that we're looking at, we have this new AI summary. So before I open up the AI summary, just want to explain a little bit how AI kind of gets connected, embedded into the Acumatica application. So Acumatica allows you to connect the system to your own LLM. So you can make a connection, whether it be Claude or Copilot or ChatGPT, right? Whatever LLM you're using, okay? You can go ahead and you can connect that LLM to Acumatica. And then you can use or create a series of prompts that is used in conjunction with that LLM connection. So Acumatica has started to build out some prompts. So previously, prior to 26R1, they had some prompts. I think we've even looked at this in some prior webinars that we had, where there's some case closure, where the system can generate notes in regards to a case when you go to close it, just basically giving a summary of that case. Same thing, stock item descriptions. It could even go ahead and do some kind of queue up some drafts for some replies to emails that are coming in. It can reply back out for you. The one that was added here specifically in 26R1 that we're looking at is this is this opportunity summary. So in here, we've got a predefined prompt. However, you can create, right, your own prompt for any, transaction that you're looking to connect this to here in Acumatica. Right? So that's all been configured. So now, based off of this prompt that's connected to my opportunity screen, if I go to my side panel and I pop open this AI summary, what it's doing is it's using the information from the opportunity in conjunction with the LLM to go and find out what it can find, right, about that the information in the system as well as external. And then it's also looking at all the activities within the opportunity. So I fed some opportunities up. I put some notes in. I put some emails going in and out. And based off of that, right, along with other information that it's finding, it's going ahead and it's putting together a summary for me, right? So it's telling me, right, it looks like that this prospect is satisfied. She's expressed some happiness with the product features and pricing. It notes my last conversation. Um, it summarized what stage that this opportunity is and reminding us of the closure date and the value. Okay. And then it's letting us know that we need to make sure we consistently follow up, right, to maintain that positive momentum. And then what it does is it will outline for you next steps, right? So what are your next actions that someone should be taking, preferably the salesperson, right, should be taking on this, right? So we need to follow up within that 1 week as agreed. And that 1 week time frame was something that I actually put into a note on this opportunity where I said, I'm going to follow up in a week. And I indicated that I was going to, confirm or address any questions that she had about pricing and features that I provided to her. And then just some other follow-ups that it feels might be beneficial. So that is how Acumatica again is using AI, an example of how Acumatica is using AI, letting you use your own LLM connection that you probably already have. I would assume a lot of you guys are already using AI internally, right? So you can use that existing LLM that you have. You can use prompts that Acumatica is creating. They're going to be creating more in the future. Or you could create your own prompts and attach it to transactions or records, just like this opportunity, to have it go and kind of perform, be an assistant to you, and in this case, perform that summary of where we're at with this opportunity. So that's a little bit on the AI summary. It literally is plug and play. As long as you have an LLM connection established within Acumatica, this AI summary, it just starts to work for you. Acumatica has made it really, really easy to be able to interact with their prompts that they already have set up in the system for you. So I'm going to be moving on now to the customer. So Acumatica has been continuously enhancing side panels with every release, right? Since side panels have come out. In receivables, if I come over to customers, Acumatica has added some more side panels, this time to the customer GI. And a couple that we're going to be focusing on is documents and AR aging, which I think are pretty cool. If I pop open this documents side panel, this is going to give me insight as to what is going on with this customer in regards to all the different documents, right, that could be open across the system. So it's first of all, it's giving me kind of what their balance is, what's overdue. So a little bit of along of an aging here. Um, do we have any open invoices or payments? And one thing to note that they've done with this side panel is they've added some conditional formatting. So they added some coloring around dates where when dates are past due, right? To draw your eye to bring attention to those. So this is giving me a list of open invoices and payments, and it's highlighting that this one is actually past due. A list of open sales orders, again, looking at that scheduled ship date, it's highlighting things for me. Open quotes and open opportunities. So again, a very cool kind of like all-in-one view for your customer from that customer primary list of all the different documents that they have open under their account. Moving over here to the AR aging, this is another dashboard view here that they've put together on the customer list. Just take a moment for this to load. So this one here is giving us our aging in different KPI widgets that represent the different buckets so that you could drill into them, right, to see all of the invoices that are within that specific bucket. So for those of you who work with dashboards, right, they're very interactive, meaning you can drill into them. So if I click this 5.54K and I want to see what's making up that balance, it will bring me to a list of invoices. In this case, it's just the one that has that balance. Let me back here, and then you would get a full list, right, of all your open invoices down below. So that's just making it easier again for you to work as you are, working with your customers. A lot of times when you're putting in sales orders, we see our customers starting with, let me go to the customer. Let me kind of evaluate where they're at before I go ahead and I place an order. So through both the documents and the AR aging, this gives you a really good, clean assessment of the customer, where they're at, as well as what they have open with you in the system. Now, they did a similar thing on your vendors. So if I navigate over to payables and I open up my vendor list, you're going to see some new GIs as well. Actually side panels here as well on the vendor list. So you can pop open the vendor, but then here's that documents tab again. If I was to go, let me just pick a vendor where I know I've got some open payables. I'll select this vendor here, and I'll open up my documents, and in here you're going to see there's some open payables. They have a balance with us, as well as open purchase orders. And again, just like the customer side panels, it's very interactive. I want to open the POs or the bills or drill into this widget, right? That's going to show me what's making up that balance. Um, I can certainly drill into any of those. I would hope all of you by now are using side panels. They've been out for, past several releases. If you're not, just real quick, as far as how you can work with these side panels, it is configurable, meaning I can make this full screen, right? I can minimize, and then I also can manually kind of stretch my side panel to be whatever size that I would like. All right, we are going to jump over now into the financial side and we're going to talk about um, a new feature in regards to financial statements. Now I'm going to open up my profit and loss, and I'm going to run my profit and loss for May of 2025 because I know I got some good demo data for that period, and I'm going to go ahead and run the report. And where the new feature comes into play is in this export. So previously, you could always export your financial statement to Excel or PDF. However, Acumatica has now added this additional Excel in parentheses connected export. And what this does is this is really creating a live connection of your financial statement back to Acumatica. Um, there's also some formulas that Acumatica has added through an Excel add-in, which we're going to take a look, that allows you to not just take an existing financial report, right, and export that out to Excel and then use that live, but you actually could build financial type reports starting from scratch in Excel using this Acumatica add-in. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to export my report to Excel. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open that up. Let me make this a little bigger so you guys can all see this. Okay. This takes a minute just to load. Always takes longer in a demo. Waiting, should have an Acumatica add in here pop in any moment. Let me just try that one more time. Make sure I grab the right thing because that seems odd. It's usually not quite that long, but let me go ahead and just open this. What's a demo without something not working correctly, right? So this was working right up until almost, and ran a last minute test here right before. Let me just try one of my previous reports that I exported out before I put this aside because it's giving me difficulties here. Yeah. Well, I'm not sure. My apologies for this. I'm not sure what's going on, but you would typically get an Acumatica plugin up here. And then this report will actually refresh with all your financial data with formulas embedded into here. You can actually see the formulas here, but it hasn't actually pulled it from Acumatica yet. So it would pull your data. So this would be ending balances, right? And let me just click into here. Excuse me, where you can kind of see a little pop-up of what it's expecting you to input into that formula. So I'm not passing the tenant, the company, it already knows that, but I can pass, it's passing in this name range, which is the book code, which is my actuals, a sales category, an account number, a starting period, which again is another name range so that you can dynamically just, change either your ledger or your financial period and it would refresh your report. And then if you had sub accounts that you wanted to go ahead and restrict that to, you certainly could, as well as like account currency. So you build out that formula. There's one there. Oh, 1 second here. Let me just, no, I can't refresh because I don't have that tab. It's so strange. It's pulling this in, but it's not pulling in the actual add-in up here. But anyways, you would normally see an Acumatica add-in where you would refresh your report and again, it would show your financial data and you can use the Acumatica functions. So these are Acumatica functions that it's adding to Excel, right? You could use those in building brand new reports. So if I started a new worksheet, right, I could actually build a new report using their functions in conjunction with both data from Acumatica as well as data from my Excel file to build out my financial reports. And actually, here it is. I don't know why it took so long, but I'm so happy it came up because it did not make a liar out of me. Here is my Acumatica add in tab. I'm going to go ahead and tell it to go ahead and refresh my sheet. And voila, we have data. Okay. So this is pulling again year to date for 2025 versus 2024, as well as periodic data here. So some of you customers might be using Velixo. This is very similar to Velixo, not quite as rich in feature set because this is version 1 of Acumatica's Excel-based reporting. But again, if you're just looking to build simple financial statements, it has most of the functions that you would be utilizing today in Velixo here inside of Acumatica. Now that the app is actually loaded, if I go into my functions, let me just get to a blank cell. If I go into my functions, you can select the Acumatica function category, and here's where you can see the functions, right, that are available to you to pull that data from Acumatica. And there's a help document that explains what these functions are intended to be used for to get you started. Now, some other things here, now that my report has loaded, is there is also drill down capabilities. So if I was to come to a specific cell and I wanted to look at what is the roll up of this data, let me see the detail of that. I can go ahead and I can drill down. And this is showing me basically the first drill down if you're running an Acumatica financial statement where it's showing you all the different branch account, sub-account combinations and what the balances are. And if I wanted to drill in even deeper, I can click on that account details and that pops open Acumatica and brings us into the account details screen where we can analyze that data even further. So I would assume Acumatica is going to be developing this out even further to have more functionality that Velixo has, such as being able to tap into other data outside of just the finance module. So perhaps generic inquiries and things like that. But for today, version 1, it allows you to create this initial financial statement through exporting from Excel. From here, again, you can modify, you can get familiar with the different, formulas, functions that they're using, and then you could even build new financial statements directly here from Excel. So that's just a little bit on the Excel. It's actually called Insights XL that was just released. All right, so jumping back now into Acumatica, we over here on the non-stock items, there's a new feature now, and let me pull up my item. Search for this. There is a new feature on the non-stock item that allows you to define on the item what basically the purchasing source is. So on a stock item, right, you have your inventory planning or your replenishments where you can say, we don't purchase this item, right? We pull from stock, or maybe it's purchase to order, maybe it's drop ship. On the non-stock side, we haven't had that ability, right, to say, how do we source this item when we use it on a sales order? And you can see they've even done the same for production orders if you're using manufacturing. So what happens now is I have this one set to drop ship. If I was to go and put this item on a sales order, let me go ahead and just copy this item out. The purchasing settings for this non-stock item is automatically going to default to drop ship for me, where previously, as a user, you would have to make that selection yourself. You would have to know this item, right? We purchase it to order, you might bring it in-house and then ship it out, or you'd have to know whether or not you were drop shipping. So you notice here, this flag is now turned on with the PO source drop ship. Again, I wanted to have it purchased to order, I could have set that on the item as well. So really helpful, a nice added feature for non-stock items to be able to have it default correctly from a purchasing perspective. On the sales order, there's been an enhancement. So I'm going to navigate over to our order types. And I'm going to find my SO order. So there's a new setting here called validate invoices from orders with 100% prepayment. Previously to having this option, if you had a sales order that required 100% prepayment, and then maybe shipping was added at the shipment level, when it got to invoice, your invoice would be in a credit hold status. You now have the ability to tell the system, I don't want to validate, right, the prepayment requirement when it gets to invoice. So I have a sales order set up as an example. Let me just quickly navigate there. So I have a sales order here for my ABC company. It's in an awaiting payment status. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a payment. And then I'm going to move forward. I'm going to ship this order. So I'll say create shipment. This is queuing up my shipment here now where I'm going to add some additional freight. Here we go. So I'm going to override. Maybe you're connected to a system that's automatically writing back some freight. You might have a handling fee, right? That could get added. But I'm going to add that freight and I'm going to confirm and then I'll create my invoice. And then here's where previously, because there was a balance due now of $50 and this invoice or the terms was set to prepay, this invoice in any version prior to 26R1 would be on credit hold. So you can see now I'm able to bypass that validation and have it go to balance so that if you have automation running now, right, you can just go ahead and release that and that won't get caught in your queue. So that's a handy little feature. I think that a lot of people could take advantage of. Over on the inventory side, on your inventory valuation reports, Acumatica has now added a checkbox to include goods in transit. Previously, right, that was not included in the value of your inventory. So this is available to you on both your current inventory valuation as well as your historical. There have been some improvements to the kit assembly transaction. Acumatica in the prior version made some improvements as far as how inventory planning was handled, and they've continued upon that. So I have an assembly transaction here queued up, and you'll note here that I have some components where I don't have any on-hand quantities. In previous versions, you couldn't save this kit assembly if you didn't have the components in stock. So that made it difficult, right, from an inventory planning perspective. This didn't create a demand. It was really had to be handled completely separate and manually. So now I can have components that I don't have in stock, both for serialized and non-serialized. And the serialized features what they just added to this version, where I can add a serialized item where I don't have the location or the serial number for because I don't have it in stock. I can now add that to my kit assembly and go ahead and save that. And when I go into my prepare replenishments, you're going to see that it creates a demand based off of this. So it says here, it's in wholesale. Take this off. Okay. Here are the two non-serialized components where I actually had some min-maxes set on that one. And then I have the machine which I didn't actually have the min-max quite set up, but you can see that it's in here and it's showing the demand. Let me just go ahead and find that. So here's my demand from that kit assembly transaction. So again, for those of you that are doing kits where you don't always have your components in stock, now that Acumatica can handle the ability to create that kit assembly that would contain both non-stock and, I'm sorry, non-serialized and serialized items that will help with your demand planning. All right, generic inquiries. As you're using Acumatica, right, and your record count on some of your inquiries are growing and growing and growing, you may find that the system takes a little bit longer, right, to populate that list. So I'm just going to bring up my sales order inquiry. I know I've got some people in field service with lots of work orders or lots of appointments. Again, it could take that list a little bit of time to load. So now here in 26R1, under my interface options, I'm able to I have the ability to disable my record counts and totals. So if I disable that, you're not going to see the record count any longer on the screen. It will, however, still be loading all of those, and it will cause that inquiry to run faster. So you could see here where you would normally see a record count. You're not seeing that any longer, but again, your data will run faster. So that's just a setting you can turn on if you find that you've got some inquiries, right, that are starting to slow down due to the volume. You can just toggle that new feature on. So Acumatica in 25R2 started to add this concept of file tags. And this was in the construction and project modules. They've now started to roll that out throughout the system. So you do still have some tagging specific to construction, but you now have this system management file tags configuration where you can come into here and you can basically create these different categories or tags of files that people are going to be attaching. And then as you're uploading the files, you can go ahead and you can tag those files with the applicable category. There's also security that can be granted to the different tags. Now, currently, only in the construction module does it actually limit your ability to see those files. I would expect they're going to expand that out throughout the system as they continue to roll out additional features for this function. But today, with the exception of construction, this is just a way to categorize. And then from a security perspective, you can secure certain files through this security model here if you're in the construction or project accounting modules. Also in the construction and project accounting modules, you can create tag templates that allow you to create even a further hierarchy of your tags. So within drawings, right, you could have some subcategories of drawings, things like that. So if we have any construction project accounting customers on the webinar today, I encourage you to reach out to us. I don't have time today to take you through all the tagging features that are in 26R1, but Acumatica has done a lot to help you manage those. So once you have just your general file tags set up, I'm going to go over and show you what that looks like when you're working with a file attachment. And I'm going to go to my Dell laptop item. So over here, I uploaded a document, this one here, and I tagged it right with my item specification. So again, just a way to categorize that so that when you're searching through all of your files, you can search and restrict files to just that specific tag or just to that specific category. And there is a new search screen for your files. So you can come into your inquiry here and you can look for files, right, that are of a specific tag type, right? So if I pick my item specification that I just did, it's now showing me the files that contain that tag. Okay. So this could be really helpful in construction, field service. I even think about purchasing a lot of times, right? As you're receiving, you might be taking photos or things like that of a product that's coming in, especially if it's damaged, right? And you're going to upload that to the receipt. You could have a tag called damaged, right? That you're able to quickly be able to search and find those different file attachments. So that's a little bit on the tag-based file management. Again, it's quite robust in construction. So again, reach out to us if you're using those modules and you want to dig deeper into that. Continuing on with our project construction management features, there is a pretty big new feature called project materials. So this has been, I would say, quite a pain point. Actually, maybe just search for it this way. This has been quite a pain point for businesses that are managing a lot of material on a project. There was no good, easy way to have the system do issues for you automatically without you having to manually create those issues or create purchase orders, right? Where you would be having to enter in the items that you're looking to purchase. This project material screen allows you to pull up a project. Let me pull my project up. Okay. And then I can manually add items here if I wanted to that I'm going to be using for my project. Or if you have all of those items already added to your project budget, you can say, hey, I want to add my items right from the budget. So I'm just going to go pull these two materials here that I'm going to need to purchase. Okay. So from in here, right, it's bringing in your quantities. It's giving you visibility as to whether or not you have sufficient inventory. And from here, this is where you can say, hey, you could check off what you want. You can say, hey, let's create the purchase order, and it will carry over the items that you have selected into your purchase order instead of you having to manually, right, add those items to your purchase order. The same thing with this materials issue. If you know that you've used certain items on the job, you've pulled them from your warehouse, right? You've issued them to your project. You go ahead and you can select those, right? You have them in stock, and you can say, hey, create a material issue, and that will create that inventory issue for you automatically. So those are two big things. There is actually more features in here with line statuses that, again, if you're a construction customer, please, please, please reach out to us because I think this is a game changer for managing materials for any of you customers, right, that are in that space. And then lastly, in the construction area, there is a new auditing screen. So I don't know how many times, right, you went and you close out a project and here's your project audit. You close out a project only to find that there's still something open, right? You might have a purchase order that was received in, but you didn't get the bill for it yet. Or you still need to go ahead and finish invoicing a customer for the final amount. And you went and you closed down the project, and your users that are trying to perform those actions, right, can't go ahead and, do those final transactions. So over here in this project audit, this is looking through the different areas of the system where you could have transactions created that are tagged with your project that are still open. And it categorizes them across all those different transaction types. So again, no more frustration both on your end from having to reopen projects to people trying to do that data input where they try to go create a transaction and you completed the project because you didn't realize there was still something pending. Now you have visibility here to all of that. So I think that, again, this is another really nice new feature for those in the construction space. And if you want to learn more about that, again, we can kind of dive deeper. So we're going to close today's session with looking at our AI assistant. So we kind of opened on the webinar looking at the AI prompt on your opportunities, and we're going to close through looking at this AI assistant. So the AI assistant is something that it's still in beta. However, if you upgrade to 26R1 and you're on Acumatica's new licensing model, you actually can subscribe to partake in the beta program here for the AI assistant. We're told that it will be fully rolled out this fall, but for 26R1, right, it's in beta. The AI assistant uses that LLM connection that we talked about earlier in conjunction with data that's in your system. And when I say data that's in your system, it's using data that has been exposed through a generic inquiry, and you as a company said, I'm going to allow this data to be accessible to my users through this AI assistant. So in the generic inquiry, I'm going to open up this one that I had previously, this sales order. You'll notice that there's this checkbox exposed to AI assistant. So Acumatica has a fairly lengthy list, a data set, right? A list of generic inquiries that it has already built and it has exposed to the AI assistant. But you also have the ability to go ahead and create your own GIs that you want to expose to the AI assistant. Okay. So for an example of that, I created a GI that I used in one of my kind of prompts to this AI assistant. I wrote a GI, called it Cal Sales Lines, that gives the AI assistant sales order line details. So there was no GI exposed, right, to the AI assistant previously with that data. So I went ahead and I created my own GI that had all that sales line data that I wanted the assistant to potentially be able to evaluate, and I exposed it to the assistant. So again, Acumatica is giving flexibility where it's creating a bunch of data sets for you and exposing it, as well as allowing you to create your own in addition to that and expose it here to the AI agent. Now, because it's using these generic inquiries basically as kind of the source, right, for all of this, the foundation for all of this, that's how Acumatica is able to bring in a security structure around this data. So what I mean by that is if you have a user that doesn't have access to that sales data, they wouldn't have access to those GIs, right, that Acumatica has created out of the box, as well as new ones that you set up. So if they don't have access to that data, if they ask the assistant for some information that's in that data set that they don't have security to, the AI assistant will come back and it will tell them, right, that they don't have security and it can't provide that data. So that's how you can have, confidence, especially if you want to evaluate like financial data, right? If you're running payroll, right? Maybe it's payroll data you want to make sure is secure. Because it's using those GIs as that underlying source that has security around it, it aligns that with the user that is interacting with your AI assistant to ensure that there are really no security breaches there. So there was a couple questions that we'll look at that I had asked my AI assistant, right? So up here, I just put into the chat, I said, hey, which customers, right, purchased a Dell laptop within the past 2 years? And here it gave me 20 customers, right, that all purchased that Dell laptop within the last 2 years. And then it gave me some key highlights, right? It tells me who my largest purchaser is as a customer and what they bought, followed by the next one. Um, and then it goes ahead and it builds kind of a graph out, right, of those 20 customers. And then one thing that you can do when it starts building out either pivots or graphs, you have the ability to say, hey, actually create that pivot so that it's reusable for me, or add that pivot to a dashboard. So again, it's taking what the AI assistant built, and it's now making it available for you to reuse in the future. Same thing with these charts. If I say view chart, it puts it onto a dashboard for me where I can view that again. And then it will give me some suggestions of other things, right, that I could ask my AI assistant here. I believe I had, yes, this one I wanted to show you as well. So I asked the AI assistant, how does my revenue compare this year to last year? And so it went through those GIs that exposed that revenue data, right? And here's what it came up with, right? It said, here's your year-to-date revenue comparison from 25 to 26. And then you can see here it's drawing, it's highlighting some concerns, telling me that my revenue dropped, right? And potentially why my revenue dropped. Okay. So again, this is just an example with this AI assistant of how you can ask the assistant questions in regards to things that are going on in your system, as well as it will pull information right from the outside world that it can find using that LLM connector, and it will come up with a response here for you. So if this is something you are interested in seeing more, maybe you've got some very specific questions that you would like to ask the AI assistant, and we're happy to schedule a session to kind of work through that with you so you can see what it can do today. And again, this is an area that Acumatica is enhancing. AI is Acumatica's top priority right now. And we've seen some really big improvements in the last two releases, starting with allowing that GI anomaly detection. They started introducing the LLM prompts previously, but now again here with 26R1, the big improvement to AI is with this assistant that you can partake in this beta, where again it is very interactive, using the data in your system as well as outside your system, and then taking how it presents that data in charts and pivots and having it just automatically, again, create those reusable metrics for you. So we're very excited about just AI in general as a company here at Cal. And we would love to, spend some time with you guys to explore, what your thoughts are, how you might be using AI. You may have ideas of how you want to start using that here within the Acumatica framework. So we would love to be able to schedule some time and have those conversations with you.